Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural divine heirs. Today is February the 24th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar, 1441 on the ancient sun calendar, and 2022 on the civil Greco-Roman calendar. All rise and stand. This is
and welcome to Pauline's Bullshit Part. Welcome to Pauline's Bullshit
Moorish American Consular Court, Article 3. We are justices. We are the original indigenous, ancient, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American ascendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. All Moors are the original indigenous ascendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. Our full faith and trust, our allegiance, our credit, and our energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous, natural divine, ancient empire state of Morocco, the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government, the universal Moorish American Consulate, and the Article 3 Moorish American Consular Court. We are peace. We are one nation. We are one state. We are one empire. And we are one God. We hereby exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time, nunc pro tunc. So on this past week, February the 22nd, we experienced the beauty of Pluto returning to its position in the cosmos, and it is the same position that it was in 1776, which is 1196 for us. Pluto reached 27 degrees Capricorn on that day, and that is the degree and sign that it was in during the signing of the Declaration of Independence, 1196. Pluto is known for, and this is important for us, this is so important for us, Pluto is known for shaking up empire dynamics and assisting them to crumble to reveal all that is solid, all that is ancient, all that is strong, and all that is true. And as we can see, that which can be shaken has fallen away, and it continues to fall away. And that which stands will continue to stand. So the shaking is in full swing, and all energies that are not rising, anything that has to do with sincerity and nobility and honorability and intelligence and all of the frequencies that are high and mighty and noble frequencies have come upon all of us. And so this is the time for all of us to move into those frequencies and practice every day living in the higher frequencies. Okay, so it's a great thing for us. It does indeed signal empire. It does indeed signal the grand rising. It does indeed signal that if you stand as we stand, and this is for all of us, as we stand during this time, and we're not shaken off of our square, that we will manifest the results that we are seeking to manifest. So continuing to rise and to transform is where we are right now. Pluto returning to 27 degrees is to be celebrated, and additionally, the planet of transformation actually entered Capricorn. And
Pluto is Pauline's fucking fantasy, Negroes. Pauline's Negro fantasy.
Islam. So Pluto is the planet of transformation, and it signifies, and this is the part we needed to hear this part because of the attempt to not hear it. Pluto is the sign that signifies abundance, wealth, money, dominance, power, authority, and ambition. And it actually entered Capricorn on November the 27th, 2008, which caused, as we could see, it caused the shaking to begin. It began in 2008 with the economic collapse, further economic collapse of all things that are not real. And it will remain in the sign of what they call the sea goat, C-S-E-A, and goat as in greatest of all time, until 1444, which is 2024. So 1444 is going to be another year of threes for us because there's 3 4s in it. And it means success for us, just like every other year does too. But this is our grand rising. This is our time. So we'll continue transforming. So let us get comfortable with the transformation and with change, because the changes are always to our advantage. Pluto is a planet of contradiction also. So during this time, Pluto will show us both creation and destruction at the same time. So that's what we're seeing right now, is the fall of the old and the creation and the rising of the ancient, which seems new, but it's really not new. It is that which has always been and will always be. So anything that is no longer serving us, anything that's no longer working for us, it will fall away. Energies that no longer serve us, such as fear and any other energies, anger, and any of those energies that no longer serve us, they will fall away. The testing will test them away, or we can voluntarily just put them away. This time, and Pluto also represents renewal and rebirth, and that renewal and rebirth is happening within us. So that's why Pluto is a representation of that which we present, all of which applies to our great eternal empire. Change is being commanded. The most notable change is the money system being uncovered, activated, and implemented. And that's happening all over the earth. We're happy for the part that we play in that, the part that we do, the things that we do and the things that we are, and the things that we're seeing develop and manifest. We are continuing our work, and we'll provide updates as we move further up in our progression. Meanwhile, we're all demonstrating our sovereign status and continuing to put our documents forth and all of that. I want to thank all of the Moors who have contributed and continue to contribute financially Moorish sovereign dollarium to us every month. The Moors are getting more and more regular with that, and the numbers are phenomenal. They're astronomical numbers, and we're so grateful for that. So the work that we're doing, we've gotten a little bit quieter on some ends because we are well immersed in the manifestation and the birthing process where all of our financial manifestations are concerned. So I'm so grateful for all the Moors. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sending the dollarium every month. It is worth it's priceless, really, priceless. So our banking system has taken in more energy resources than any other bank in the history of our planet thus far. So, and that's been in just a very short time. We only introduced our banking system. It's been maybe around a year, but really it started in 2018 when we placed that first lien on the United States Corporation Company back on August 3rd of 2018. And that really kind of kicked things off with our banking system. And since then, it's just been a progression, and we're remembering and we're seeing how our banking has progressed. We did speak about the analog banking system, and we see how that is developing. It's developing beautifully. So we're just grateful for everyone who has given Dollarium. And anyone wanting Dollarium, please text me your email address at 334-294-9828, and I will send you Dollarium in your email. So, or you can go out onto Facebook, and you can look me up on Facebook at Like Tajiri Bay, and I will send you Dollarium so that you can begin making your monthly contribution to the nation and to this work that we're doing. We're so grateful. We see what's developing, and I'm so excited about it. I can't really talk about all of it right now, but we're just going to keep working. So with that being said, Pluto returns, and it is assisting us throughout this whole process where our financial system is concerned. We didn't get into this situation that we're out of now. We didn't get into that past era overnight. So it is taking some time for everything to develop, but it is developing beautifully at this point. And so we're excited about that. We'll be sharing more about the numbers because the numbers are phenomenal. I mean, we have outpaced all other banks just about combined with regard to the movement and the tribution of more sovereign Dollarium. That includes the Dollarium documents that came through with the Moroccan American Exchange. So we've outpaced them all in a very short time. And for that, we're grateful. We realize, too, that when the corporate first, and we'll call them subjects at this point, when the subjects first started doing their service back in 1913 with the Federal Reserve Act in 1933, when they began printing those notes that they were printing, they couldn't do it until they had our agreement by autograph. And so what they did was, and this is just a backstory on the actors and how the acting transpired. What they did was they got a bunch of contracts from the heirs with regard to them saying that, you know, we need to convert all of the titles to deeds and put them on the record. And even my grandmother and some of your grandparents were a part of that process where, you know, they held their allodial titles in their possession, and then they put, for the subjects, they autographed deeds and documents. So, and it was stated that they were helping what was going on the land, and so they autographed. But they still kept their allodial titles. So allodial title hasn't gone anywhere. We can create them at any time, and we create them regularly. And so that is, we're back to that again, back to 1776 again, 1196, and all of that. And so today I want to share some documents from that time period and a little bit thereafter that are proof. And these documents also give us guidance with regard to our economic and our banking system. It's going to be great reading for those who choose to delve in and just start studying it, because if you want to know about future banking, you look at past banking and how it developed, particularly where the Moors here on this land are concerned. So, you know, we could get documents that don't mention Moors and talk about how that, you know, how banking developed. But we have documents that do mention Moors. And this document that we're going to show you it's from 1841. And it is from the perspective of the subjects, the occupiers, the previous occupiers. It's from their perspective. It's what they were thinking about us and our land and our resources at that time that motivated them to do the things that they've done, okay? And we can actually look and use the same information to continue to motivate us to use our energy to put Dollarium forth and do the things that need to be done with regard to our economic stability as a nation and as the state and our economic future. So I'm going to put in the chat a link to the St. Louis Federal Reserve. They have vaults that have this information in them. And this information, and I want to just point this out to you because some may not have noticed, but most of the information that we see that relates to us yes, in the chat, Empress. Should we be tributing Dollarium for our congressional weekly court actions? I don't want to say it's mandated because it's not. We don't have mandates. We just, if more choose to do that, that would actually help us a lot. Is to get Dollarium every week for these meetings. And we were going to put that forth as just a suggestion because we don't want to, you know, everything should be comfortable for us. Everything should be comfortable, and we should be doing things willingly. So thank you for asking that question, Empress. The answer is, it is, as the sovereigns, it would be an honor to receive Dollarium every week for this work that we do. And Dollarium is the main reason and the motivation for continuing to do this research and present it to you, because so that we all can see together that we're absolutely doing all the right things, So I'm going to put this in the chat, the link to this document that we're going to look at. And as I put the link in the chat, I want to point out something very important about the information that we receive when we go onto the internet. Most, and I thought this too, I thought that when we went onto the internet that we were, you know, going onto the World Wide Web and getting all of this information and all of that. And I thought that the World Wide Web and the internet were the same thing, but they're not. So the internet is actually old, ancient, very old. The World Wide Web is newer. It came about in 1990 and 1991. And with regard to the information that actually pertains to us, that mentions us, that talks about the things that were going on our land, and that's in these vaults of information, that information is more pure and uncorrupted on the internet instead of on the World Wide Web. And the way that you will know that you're looking at those types of documents is you will not see www in front of the internet address. Just like the one that we placed in the chat that we will put under this video. Most of the older things, like the Federal Reserve, is actually older, and it was actually ours. We're the original Federal Reserve before the corporate in 1913 and 1933. Okay, we've always said that we were here first. We did all of this first. All of this is nothing new. There is nothing new under the sun. And so when you're talking about banks that honor the Republic, you will not usually find them, the records in their purity, or as pure as they can be without us creating them directly on the World Wide Web, on www. Even though www addresses in the World Wide Web is useful, we're not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater, but it's not the same as the underground internet, the foundational internet that everything was hypothecated on top of and subrogated on top of, supposedly. So here in the chat, I've put the link, and so let's just take a look at one of the documents here. Because I want to show some things that that we need to see. So what we're putting on the screen is, let me just ensure that you can see it.
Why don't you show your failed takeover of First Avenue, Pauline? Show everybody that. Show your failed First Avenue takeover.
Okay, we already own everything, so that's, oh wow, that's funny. They're running out of things to say. All right. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Okay, can you all see it on the screen? Let me see.
Yes.
Okay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Islam, thank you. Okay, so This is from 1841, and it is regarding Morocco and its facilities for American commercial enterprise. Okay, long before 1956. Long before 1956, when the corporate Morocco was incorporated. So we know that they're talking about this land here. Okay. It states here specifically nature of its government, and these are some things, this is like a research paper where those who had their sights on our land were looking around and doing all of their digging and research as much as they could to find anything they could find in order to help them to get further into everything that is going on on our land. They wanted a part of the resources. They wanted a part of everything. Okay. And, you know, our ancestors said, you know, you can come on within boundaries. You have rules and boundaries because we like to keep things orderly. But these are some of their thoughts. It's kind of like a white paper for them. It talks about the harbors and ports, the export and import duties, the merchants of Morocco, the character of the trade, and how we did everything that has to do with banking, trade, etc. Okay, and again, it says here at the top, if we consider the situation of the empire of Morocco, then we know they're not talking about the kingdom of Morocco. They're talking about here. It says, and so I just want to point out just a couple of things that were stated in here about things that we did. Here are some of the things that we, you know, when you're talking about quarantine does not mean what they told us it meant. It does not. But it says here, several articles of the highest importance are not allowed to be landed at all. And many articles are strictly quarantined. Wool, for instance, is strictly excluded, and a single Moorish sash or piece of cloth on board a market boat from Morocco will quarantine the unlucky boat, cargo, passengers, and crew. So we use natural fibers and everything for all that we did. But when it came to the animal things, we took special care to quarantine, and we made sure that those animal things that were made from animals, were in a separate place. And then we also made sure that those who came here, if they brought something here that was made from animals, we checked it at the port, and we made sure. So we were in control of everything that has to do with our land, everything. And that's why our land was disease-free. Disease-free. And I want to point out here on page 493 of this document, there are a couple of now this is important where the Christians are concerned. It says it is impossible for a Christian to set foot within a town. There's a particular town where the Christians, they didn't want the Christians in there because they saw that, and we don't hate Christians, we love Christians, the ones that are actually following the Christian faith, because we know that the ones that follow the Christian faith will do what needs to be done in terms of what's lawful. and they know who the Moors are. So this is proof from 1841 that they've known who we are. Okay. But some places they couldn't go even under the protection of Moorish guards. They would have had to be escorted by Moorish, those who were governing, along with the military, the Moorish guards, in order to get anywhere on our land. And the Moorish guards guarded everything that had to do with the land. So it says here, the native bigotry and ferocity of the people have been qualified by the residents among them of a number of Moorish merchants. That means the Moorish merchants were talking about this and saying, hey, you know, and then we had something to do with the way the people felt as well. So it says here, the native bigotry and ferocity of the people have been qualified by the residents among them of a number of Moorish merchants who are in the habit of making frequent expeditions to Gibraltar, Marseille, Genoa, and Leghorn, and who, by their intercourse with Europeans, have become disabused of some of their prejudices, accustomed to the sight of Christians, and polished into a toleration of the refinements and habits of civilized life. So what they're saying is that, you know, the people didn't want anything to do with the European Christians. They didn't want anything to do with them. And we, Moors, are the ones who, by our intercourse with Europeans, and by intercourse that means commercial intercourse, we quieted everyone down and said, okay, you know, let them come and do what they need to do. So this is proof that we're the ones who were in control and command of all that has taken place. Everything that has taken place. We had and we have complete command and control over it. We just need to know that, because we need to look back in our history and see that we have complete command and control. They could not move without us, or else the people would have killed them. So we had to actually say, hold up, everyone calm down. And everyone calms down when the Moors said calm down. And you can read more of that in here. And when they talk about civilized life here, they're not talking about eating with gold spoons and cups and forks. They're talking about Europeans that we civilized. Okay. Throughout this document, let me take you a little further down to a couple of the other chapters where they talk about this land and Moors and the things that we did. This is proof that we had Moorish subjects and that we are indeed the masters. It says the commerce of this empire, not the kingdom, the empire, as it is at present conducted, is principally in the hands of the Jews, although in some other towns there are quite a number of Moorish merchants. Now, listen carefully. We were the Jews too back then. They're not talking about the ones that claim to be Jews, but they're not, according to the bibliophilio text. We were those too. The Moors have naturally a strong turn for trade. That means we knew what we were doing when it came to trade. But see, this document is going to point out some of the things that we can do better. It says, but it is impossible for them to successfully compete with their Jewish rivals who have, in several particulars, very decided advantages. And those advantages, again, came from us. Remember, we're the original everyone. We're the original Jews. We're not Jewish, but Jews. Okay? And that term is not used in the way that they use it. It has, it's in red, it's in all lowercase letters, and it's actually spelled differently from the way they spelled it in this document. Okay. It says the cunning, rascality, and faithlessness of the Jew merchants of Barbary, that tells you that they're us, Jewish merchants of Barbary, has passed into a proverb, but they were dishonest. They were dishonest. Yes, Jew, in the chat, the Empress put in the Biblios, Judah is the lawgiver. Yes, that's the Jews that are the Moors, is Judah. That's where that term came from. And we did not spell it J-E-W because there was no J. Okay. We were Judah or Huda back then. It says here, and notwithstanding the endeavors of their Moorish masters to emulate them, they are likely to remain unsurpassed. See, they knew we were the masters of even those. The ones, the Jew merchants of Barbary, we were their masters. It says, but with all their skill in industry, they very seldom get rich, and if they do, it is very seldom that they keep their wealth. The emperor, in the end, generally proves too much for them. Very few of them commence with any capital of their own. So we can look at this and see that there's some things that we can look out for as we continue moving in our own commerce. And they knew about capitalism and capital letters and all of that. They knew about all of that back then. This is nothing new. When they say in control of our own capital, that's what the Empire State, that Morocco has done, what we've done here with the Fiduciary Document. In control of our own capital, because any document that we use our own capitalism on, that document is actually money, liens, court actions, any document where we're talking about our own, where we're the fiduciaries of our own capitalism. In other words, we've capitalized our own instrument. For me to capitalize my own instruments would be leaning anything that the United States Corporation Company puts out, and then presenting my own capitalized name, because it is an infligis, and it's an instrument. It's not me. It's an instrument. But when it's created by the Empire State of Morocco, then we can use it as we will, and we carry our capital with us everywhere we go. So no one else can capitalize our name, our instrument, and create instruments on us, because the Empire State of Morocco has claim on it. And when the state has claim on property, because that's what that is, Pauline Denise Ritchie, in capital, all capital letters, no matter what color the ink is the property of the Empire State. So no one else can capitalize that and then say, that's you, and you're responsible for this. Oh, can't do it. Can't call me into any courts and say, that's you. Can't do it. Can't do it. Because we've capitalized our own, and we've leaned everyone else's ability to do that. It took some testing and trials and things like that to get to this point, but we had to get here. And we weren't afraid of any test, because we know we're going to learn in every test that is given. And we're grateful that the ancestors have been generous with us and kind and gentle with us in the testing, you know. But this capitalism piece is very, very, very key. It's very important. Capital of their own, they're saying this in 1841. In 1841. It says, it is always borrowed from the emperor, who loans it in sums of from $1,000 to $10,000, and generally without interest. There's no interest on gold. The only consideration for it is that the borrower shall make business, as the phrase is, for the custom house, and the only security is the power of the emperor to come down at any moment upon his debtor and squeeze principal, interest, profits, and all out of him. Now, we do not have, and this is key too, and this is why I keep saying, suggesting that everyone do that fiduciary document, is so that no one can come and capitalize your instruments rather, because it's not you, it's an instrument. Pauline Denise Ritchie is an instrument. No one can capitalize you and say, well, I'm your emperor and I need to tax your instrument. And then you go out trying to get taxes and stuff, trying to work up some funds to pay the taxes. We say, do it yourself, or else someone else will, because no one can be stateless. All have to have a state. And so it's best that we are our own state, our own sovereign state. Okay. Now, will those instruments be taxed as we move into commerce? Probably. Mine will too. But we won't be taxed. We are not taxed, but the instruments are when we're doing commerce on the land. Okay. And that's simply for the upkeep and the upbuilding of the empire. We tax all, and let me just say this, let me clarify that. All corporations are taxed. And when you capitalize, like Pauline Denise Ritchie in all capital letters as issued by the Empire State of Morocco, that is a commercial instrument. And when I start using that instrument to do things like sea salt and all of that, I'm going to be looking around to see, okay, I know that I'm supposed to do something with regard to taxing. So let's see what that is, and because I want to honor our empire so that we never go back into that other situation. Those that are not doing commerce, and in our personal capacity, we're not taxed. But when we start doing commerce, like when we start doing sea salt and all of these things on a larger scale, then we expect to be taxed. And it's not going to be anything, outlandish. It's just going to be in alignment with what our ancestors did. Anytime we're doing corporation business, okay? So I incorporated my own instrument under the Empire State so that we can. Yes, and it's not even called a tax for us. It is a tithe. It's a tithe. Yes, thank you for that correction, because I want to make it clear what that is. It is a tithe. It's a tithe. It's not a tax. It's a tithe. But the foreign corporations that are doing business and actually either done by foreigners or subjects, that is a tax for them. And they can call it a tithe if they want to call it a tithe too, because Christianity that's where tithing came from. We said, if you're going to do business here, the government needs to tithe from the subjects and the citizens and anyone coming to do commerce. So yes, it is. And here's the thing, when you're living a 1,000 times better than you were before, because you have your own economy, you have your own money, and all of that, you get to determine how things go. That is up to the people. Okay, that's up to the people. Do we want to prove our allegiance in the form of a tithe? Sure we do. We want to prove our allegiance, because that way no other corporate state can say you owe taxes. See, for those who are having problems with the quote-unquote IRS, if you can prove that you pay taxes to another government, then your allegiance is with your government. all of those who have sent Dollarium as a donation in the email, you're showing allegiance to your government, and your government is not me. I'm putting Dollarium in too, just like everybody else. And so when we do that, all that is proof of our allegiance. That's all it is. It's proof of our allegiance, and then we're able to show that I've been paying taxes regularly or gifts or donations to my own government. So, and we're not using fiat to do that. So we don't owe the fiat masters anything. So these documents that we're putting forth on the screen, it's just giving us more and more information about how we did business and how others viewed us at the time and all of that. In this same document, we can learn so much from this document. Let's see. I want to go back to page 493, and I'll show you here in this document that those that were here, they came here looking for our empire, and it was not the other way around. Here, let's see. I want to point something out really quickly. Okay, here on this page right here, this is the subjects, the foreigners at the time who came here to do commerce, and this is what they were saying about our land, about how they were talking about the land being what it should be. Okay, and whose land it really is. It says the whole world may be called a perfect imperfection. That is, it is a system of wants, desires, and necessities, imperfect, unsatisfied, as it regards the wishes of man, yet perfect and adapted to the design for which they were instituted by the divine mind. And again, they're talking about the Moors being the divine mind. It says, if this earth were heaven, a state of entire happiness instead of being a place of discipline, which is where we are now, trade would not perhaps be known in the system of things, but men would live in a pastoral state by the side of streams and beneath the shade of spreading beech trees, where the music of birds, the odor of flowers, and balmy airs would lull them to repose, filled with a sense of beauty, contentment, and peace. It says no such paradise is ours. And they knew that. They know that we can do that, though. And that's where we're moving to now. It says we live in a state of labor. It is the order of our being. The order, when they start talking about the order of their being, they're talking about what they were made to do. It says that if a man do not work, neither shall he eat. In the division of labor, trade is one of the contrivances of man's ingenuity for bettering his condition. And that's where we are now, where we're going to be engaging in trade and exchange and merchant actions in order to make our land what it should be. It's for us, yes, but it's for our land more so than anything else. It's for our land, because this land has to be back in alignment with the law. Okay, especially and particularly where the money is concerned. Okay, it says it is a department, a profession of human industry, and ought to serve the greatest good of the greatest number. Does it do this? Would the world be better off if every man united in his own person what are now distributed among classes of men, and which give to them their names or callings. They're talking about capitalism here. Every man united in his own person. What are now distributed among classes of men. See, others were capitalizing the Moors. So let me give you an example of that. Whenever we would go into those fake courts, those corporate courts, before we leaned them into submission, whenever Moors would go in and they would state their appellation, automatically those fake courts would capitalize the appellation and put it on a piece of paper and continue with treating them as if they're not a Moorish American national. That's capitalism at its worst. And so Moors would be thinking that, oh, they changed the paperwork to reflect my appellation. No, they capitalized your appellation and took possession of it and trademarked it for them. And then they start telling it what to do. Because they know that that's not you, that's an instrument. And so our job as fiduciaries of our own instrument is to make sure that that never happens. Yes, Empress, in the chat, she says, and they presume that those instruments were stateless, and there can be, and this is a command that we put out, that there can be no one stateless on this land. No one stateless on the land. So it's our job to fix that. And it is fixed on a statewide and an empire-wide level, but each Moor has to have the competence to do the same. You must take full possession of your own instrument. That's what the fiduciary document does, and it will be under this video. There'll be a link to it under this video at Like Kabiri Bay channel on YouTube. Okay, so with that being said, Pluto has returned so that we can go all the way back and fix everything so that we grow in our own sovereign state, and so that our heirs, when they're born and birthed, they're birthed at Morocco, at the empire, where we create their documents. And we have, and this is important, mothers, matriarchs, you should all be the fiduciary of the instruments for your heirs. When you speak the sovereign-born appellation of your heirs, for example, I'll just use Ravana. That's my heiress's appellation. When you speak their appellation, when they cross the Stargate, you should already have, really, because you could prepare ahead of time their sovereign birth affidavit and all of that. You could prepare that ahead of time. Okay? And then the fiduciary document should go with you wherever you go in terms of the heirs, letting everyone know that no, even though there's a school there or there's something there, a hospital there or whatever, that the hospital does not have the authority to capitalize the instruments of your heirs. That only you can do that because the heir is born at Morocco and not in their hospital. And that the hospital is at Morocco. Because when you prove that you have your own capitalism in your control, then no one else, they have to ask permission to do this, that, and the third, and it must be done according to what you state. And we don't even leave that up to them. We do it ourselves. That's what vital statistics mean. They're vital because if they're not done in the proper state, then they're considered stateless. And that's where they go get the gall and the gumption to take heirs and say, this is a stateless heir, this is a ward of the state. So this is nothing new. It's not, none of this is new. None of this is new. Let me just try something really quickly here. The word capital is mentioned in this document 15 times. And on the screen, oh, this is so important. And it's important because it matters who's in control of the capitalism, where our heirs are concerned, because that will determine whether you're considered stateless and lost at sea, or whether no matter where you go, you are treated as the nobility that you are. On the screen, it's going to say, right here on the screen, it says here, it says, our young friend John was an adventurous turn and a little speculative withal, but he was a poor apprentice boy and had no money. As soon, however, as Mr. Mason had discovered what his turn was and found that he was worthy of being encouraged, he made him a present of some boxes of fish, a keg of butter, and a box of tallow candles. And with these, John commenced his career of commercial life, then only 14 years old. With these for his capital, he pursued a regular course of adventure and with various success. Now, where they say with these for his capital, that means that he took them and he said, these are John's wares to sell. That's what that means. That these are John's things to sell. So the guy gave him a little something to sell and to capitalize as his own. It says here, sometimes making a loss, but never sinking his capital. In other words, he never yielded jurisdiction of his capital to anyone else because he was wise to do so. He knew not to allow anyone else to capitalize him. How do you do that? Always proclaim your nationality and always proclaim that your allegiance is to your sovereign empire state and not any state that is not that. The United States in red and all lowercase letters, the United States for America, that is also where our allegiance is as well, because in red and all lowercase letters, that's us from the very beginning. So we can put United States for America on our document because that's under the Empire State as well. It says, when he had increased his capital a little, he divided his interest into several adventures instead of seeking it all in one. And it was not more than a year and a half before John became a prosperous merchant on a small scale. Prosperity for us has everything to do with us being in control of our own capitalism. The fiduciary document. That is how you get prosperous. Instead of letting someone else in another state or a stateless corporation capitalize instruments that are used where your resources and your property is concerned. This is 1841 that this was written. 1841, and it's in a merchant magazine. So they knew about capital and what it meant and all of that. But if we decided back then that we were going to just go to sleep and let others do all the work, then what did they do? They said, okay, well, let's just get him to sign this bond, this jail bond. That means he's consenting for us to capitalize him. and not him being in control of his own capitalism. That will sink your capitalism. And when those terms that they used back then are not by accident, they knew that that was a lost at sea situation. They knew. And so being in control of our own capitalism is key for all Moors at all times. Okay? And this is the part that's crazy about that, that's really, it's a fact. It's a protection measure when there's love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice in place. Okay? But the state, we're the state. When I say we, that's all of us. If there's someone who is claiming statelessness vehemently, okay, and their allegiance is to the red, white, and blue flag and not the Moroccan flag and not the Empire State, and their allegiance, they say, is to a corporation that they think is in control of something, that they can be capitalized by other Moors who want to protect anything that has to do with them. And then because they would be in subject status. Period. And I know that that sounds like not love, but it actually is love. It actually is love. It's a protective measure. Because one way or the other, there's going to be some capitalism taking place. There's going to be someone acting as fiduciary and trustee of an estate. We've already seen what that looks like under incompetent corpses. We know what that looks like. And that's why we've taken the measures that we've taken with regard to the Empire State of Morocco and making sure that it's overarching. And then the Moors, you're the fiduciary. Those who are wise enough to take advantage of that and put your own and be the fiduciary of your own affairs, there's no price you can put on that. There's no price you can put on that. See, in the past, Moors were attempting to trademark their names by sending it through the U.S. Trademark and Patent Office in all black ink before, without allegiance to their state. That's why it didn't work. But it works when, number one, your state is properly proclaimed on the record. That all of the things have been done properly to proclaim that, yes, we are the sovereign state. Like the statehood document that will be under this video. And that's why we say all Moors. That way, our brothers and sisters who haven't awakened yet or who have chosen to come here and never wake up will know that they're protected too. We will know that they're protected. But that's also where, in the past, there were Moors who did not do the right thing with regard to that. This time it can't be like that. Our ancestors are not having it. They're not going to let just any old energy come in and do. We've seen that. We've seen that when we see people who are warring and continuing to war, and we say, hey, can you stop warring because this is not a war situation. We're actually trying to be at peace. We are at peace here. It's not a war situation. And they keep warring, and I don't care, they're lawless, and na. And then they reap war energy back, and then it's we don't want that for anyone. When we can sit down and look at these documents and look at this that's being done, and then do our own study, and then implement these things. We're showing you in the record what capitalism looks like. It says it right here that a 14-year-old did it in 1841. A 14-year-old did it. by increasing his capital a little, all that means is that he said, these are John's fruits. And then he went and got more fruits. He sold those and got more, and his inventory increased. Well, John has increased his capital. What is his capital? He put John in all capital letters and said, this is John's fruit stand. That's what capitalism is. Now, capitalism in and of itself is not bad, but it needs to be done in an honorable manner by the Moors. Let's just break that on down. It needs to be done by those who put it in place in the first place. Okay, the Moorish Empire put capitalism. We came up with that system, and we put it in place. Okay, that's evident by the records. And again, these records here that we're looking at on the screen is from the Federal Reserve at St. Louis. And each Federal Reserve bank has records for their time period that precede 1913 that you can find on the internet. Chances of finding it on the World Wide Web are slim. Older records are on the internet, but they're not on the World Wide Web. I'll just say that the World Wide Web, just do your research on what that really is. It is something whereby scenarios were presented. Okay. One of the Moors on social media pointed that out to me the other day. He put it very nicely because he did a little research on CERN and all of that. Because people keep talking about CERN this and CERN that. CERN is where the World Wide Web came from, and the World Wide Web is someone else's version of stories. Okay, that's what it is. It's someone else's version of the truth. CERN is the site of the Large Hadron Collider, the world's largest and highest energy particle collider. The main site at Marin hosts a large computing facility which is primarily used, and this was what caught his attention, primarily used to store and analyze data from experiments as well as simulate events. We've been talking about a matrix. Well, there it is. There it is. That's where this testing and these simulations and all of that, that matrix that we just came out of, that's where it comes from. Okay. And now we're finding the true ancient foundational information because we stepped outside of that matrix. Can we go back in at will or peek back in there or look in there at will? We can, and we do sometimes. It changes our frequency, so, we just use it as a tool. But that which stands is always going to stand. We have been ourselves since time immemorial. That will not change. Not going to change. So, with that being said, let me get back to this document. I put the link to the document. Feel free to go through the document. It's all about the Moors, and the Europeans in the document are absolutely talking about how they felt about our estate and what they thought about us, so we can look at that and learn from it. I want to put this map on the screen because I found something very interesting about this map. That I'd like to point out because I know in my spirit I got affirmation in my spirit about the map. This map that's on the screen, if you transpose this map, this is a map where it says here that Morocco is here and that beneath that is the Sahara Desert, and it's the coastline, and this is the coastline over here. And then above that is Gibraltar and all of this land up here, which they don't show you the rest of it. But, and I'll just share this with you just because it makes sense to me. This is actually the west coast of America, in my opinion. Let me put it that way. In my opinion, the Sahara Desert, I did a little bit of research and digging, and it didn't take much, but I just Googled desert at America. Map of deserts at America. And I'll just show you what came up when I did that. North America on the West Coast looks exactly like what they have there. When I Googled, and again, this is just my opinion. I don't have any. I just know they look a whole lot alike, and I know that Morocco is here, and it always has been here. And again, this is in 1841. Morocco over there was not until 1956. So let me put this on the screen. If it's not, yeah, it's already there. All of this that's showing on the screen, this is the Northwest. This is the Pacific Northwest. These are deserts. All of this is desert on the screen, or it's said to be desert. They call it desert, okay, all of this. And when you look in this little corner right here, that could easily be the same piece of land, okay? But, you know, again, that's just my opinion, just from what I'm seeing about the land masses. So, anyway, are there any questions or comments or wisdom with regard to all that is taking place right now with regard to our trade, our exchange, our banking, and all of that? Because it's all manifesting here now. We just have to continue our study and demonstrations of who we really are so that we can get other pieces of the puzzle. Some are farther ahead on the pieces of the puzzle, and some are at a place where they're comfortable. I wouldn't even say behind. Nobody's behind. Everyone is right where they need to be in terms of the information and the knowledge and all that needs to manifest for us. Everyone is right where they need to be. So, are there any questions or comments about any of this?
Islam, Sister Light.
Islam mobility.
Justice Frank Ill. I noticed something. I don't know where you can elaborate on or not, but Morocco, I've been here, it was over here. I was wondering why Capita Dominicil medium and the rest of the so-called states at Morocco here, why they all caps, and so since we're talking about capitalism, do you notice anything like that? That's the only thing that's Morocco is captive domination minimum, and the rest of that stuff is all maximum. Could you elaborate a little bit?
I am so glad you noticed that. Let's go back to the document and just look at that for a minute. I'm glad you noticed that. And I'll explain why it's like that. Let's go back.
See, that's me talking to her, Cheryl. Hear that? Yeah, I'm on the internet now, and we studying.
Just one moment. Justice Frank, we can hear you.
Did he call my name? He talking to me. Yeah. Oh, mute that. Shoot. I'm talking. I got company. I was just talking. I thought I was muted. Excuse me.
Islam. No worries, Justice Frank. Okay, let's go back to the document. So now, you're absolutely correct about everything, some things being in capitis diminutio maxima, and some things being in capitis diminutio minima. The places that are in capitis diminutio maxima are places that have been capitalized for commerce. The places that are in capitis diminutio minima are places that are not in maxima form, because that is the place where the land, the nationals, and the citizens were, and that is a description of the land, okay, where the citizens and the nationals were. And then the places in capitis diminutio maxima are trade routes, places where along the way people would go and they would do commerce. Okay? Shedma, Haha, Dequela, Timsna, Tedla, those are all trade routes. And they actually have them kind of like, they have these little perforated lines here. That's one of the reasons why they're capped off like that. Even the Sahara, I did some research on the Sahara Desert, okay, and I found out that, and here you can see the bookmark of the Federal Reserve, the St. Louis Fed here, Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Why would they have these documents if it had to do with something over there and not over here on this land? Okay. But one thing I found out about the desert is that they told us it's a desert, but it is not. It is literally a beach. There is wildlife there. There is birds, pelicans, swans, animals living there, drinking the water that's everywhere. There's oil there. There's natural resources, and that includes the desert here. Because, see, they're talking about the Sahara, but that's here, not over there. That's here. The Sahara is just another name for the Mojave and all of the desert, that whole desert. The Sahara is all the deserts put together here on this land. That's the Sahara. And if you know a little bit about the history, which you all do, they've been saying that the Sahara is people have been trying to claim it over there. They've been fighting over it, supposedly. Egypt and Morocco, etc., have been saying, no, that's ours, no, that's ours. It's an uninhabited zone, etc., unclaimed, supposedly, but it's not. We claim all land here at Morocco, and it's all state property. It has so many natural resources that are actually being there. Everything is set up already for workers to go out there and just pull oil, minerals, all types of resources, natural gas, lots of sources of fresh water. Because remember, we're sitting on top of it. There's no place on this land that's not sitting on top of water, fresh water or salt water. So the things that we were led to believe are not true. So there's even a place called the Red Desert. The Red Desert here on this land. And the Red Desert is red because of the copper that's just everywhere. And that copper and those minerals that are there are priceless. And our ancestors were mining them, but then when they stopped mining them, there's not been a whole lot of activity there. All of that stuff is just waiting for us to do what we're doing now with regard to getting ready to do the exchange and the trade. But it could not be done on a fiat system because the fiat system cannot support that many natural resources. They don't have enough zeros in that system to support what we have to do. And I'll say one final thing about the natural resources, and we're seeing it regularly already, even in our own lives, that the natural resources, once we begin to use them and consume them internally, we won't ever have to worry about sickness. And we know this already. And I put it that way to avoid saying some things about that because it's not time to say them yet. But we don't ever have to worry about being sick when we have access to those resources. And we do already. We have access right now to sea salt. Sea salt, to call it sea salt is actually a little bit of a misnomer. And that I know just from my own personal experience with it. It's not really sea salt. It's really minerals that taste salty. Natural minerals that taste salty. That's really what it is. That would be a more accurate description. Okay. The affidavits, if you're asking about, I see something in the chat about affidavits. The affidavits will be under this video for what we're doing and what we're discussing. How can we receive the sovereign real estate transaction checklist and affidavits to complete a real estate purchase? First, know also, and Justice Dawood can assist you with that. He put that in the chat. Just know that, number one, we're not buying our own estate. What we're doing is a sovereign exchange. That's number one. Number two, there cannot be any fiat going back and forth with regard to the things that we do. Some more, feel okay with the fiat going back and forth, but it really kind of can't go back and forth because it corrupts. We know that already, though. So when Moors are giving out documents and things, it should be given. There shouldn't be fiat going back and forth. If anything, dollarium because that's lawful money. Yes, send him your email and he will get you the affidavit, sure. And then again, there'll be affidavits. Those same ones will be under this video as well, in red and all lowercase letters. They are in ancient English as well. So keep that in mind. And we're starting to see, too, that ancient English is absolutely the right thing to do. That was inspired straight from the ancestors. And now that we've done it, we see where corporate English is not even the language even of this land that we're on. Corporate English is not the language for it. Here in the Puget Sound territory, we have found that we left our descendants language of their own. So they say that their language is the language of Puget Sound, and we affirm. We use ancient English, and their language is all lowercase letters. We left that for them. They don't use capital letters when they speak their language and when they write it on paper. So we have further affirmation of all that we've been saying about capitalism. See, now let me say this about that. I'm not pointing any fingers at anyone because this is a widespread issue. But those who don't want Moors doing things in all lowercase letters, it's because they have their sights set on capitalizing you themselves. That is why there was such an outcry on don't put things in red and all lowercase letters for some. Not for all. Some people genuinely did not know. But our foundational documents that are foundational, that state who we are, need to be in red and all lowercase letters. And then the fiduciary document puts everything else in capital diminution minimum and in capital diminution media and maximum. And we all do that for ourselves so that we can engage in international commerce and not have to worry about being violated by somebody throwing an instrument on us or on our property saying it belongs to them, because that's what's been being done. So some didn't know, but as we watch the progression of those who did know, they had their sights set on capitalizing you for themselves and getting a little old discounting and things. Because that's what's been going on. Just look back. All you got to do is look back. And that's another thing about the tithing piece, is that at some point they're going to have to file a tax return, a tithe return with the nation. And it's going to show. It's going to show. If you're ever wondering, who, if someone might have capitalized and sent that to the Internal Revenue Service or the IRS, quote unquote, and you want to know if they did that, just ask to see their tax returns. Just ask them. Any 501c3, you can ask to see their tax returns, and it's supposed to be public record and public knowledge. And you can see, like the churches were doing, the churches were turning over the names of the members, and the IRS would decapitalize or capitalize them, depending on what they were trying to do. Okay? It's best that we are in control of our own affairs and the affairs of our heirs. And then as a gift to the heirs, When the heirs reach a certain age, age of majority, and the age of majority for us was 12 years old, because by then we taught our heirs from birth everything about capitalism, merchant commerce, all of that. We taught them everything on how to secure themselves, how to take care of themselves and everything. So that's why we didn't go to animal schools. We went to our own Moorish temples to learn. So we got this. It's already a wrap. It's already a wrap. It's already done. Already finished. We just have to continue doing what we're doing. And if you want to protect those who might be asleep or whatever, and then here's the thing about capitalism and, let's say, for example, the heirs or others around you who are asleep and just do not know, and they don't want anything to do with Moorish science, okay? If they want to stay in citizen or subject status, then you can add them to your fiduciary document until they send their own fiduciary document or put their own fiduciary document on public record. Okay? And so it's important that that be done, and that when you do that, that you've already done a court action to stop the fiduciaries or trustee acting of the United States Corporation Company. You got to stop them first and then activate your own commerce and sovereign fiduciary obligation, because it is an obligation. It must be done, and somebody's going to do it. We can see that. Someone is going to capitalize. Who is it? It's going to be the Moor. We're getting back to what the 14-year-old in this document did for himself. And he knew to protect his capitalism. Now, one last thing here. This that's on the screen. This is an example of how when we would not stick together, we wouldn't stick together. They're talking about it, and they were looking for the weaknesses that our disunity showed them. On the screen, the government of Morocco is generally supposed to be an unlimited despotism. Unlimited, and they said despotism. They don't, because they're going to describe Moors the way that they describe Moors. But what they're really saying is we are unlimited, period. In other words, we have our own everything, and no one can stop us from doing anything. It says this is not exactly true. The power of the emperor, and look how they spelled emperor, is limited in many particulars and by a great many circumstances, and is very different in different parts of the empire. In some provinces, his authority is readily acknowledged and obeyed. In others, only a nominal obedience is rendered, while in others, in the very heart of the country, he has not the slightest influence, and even his name is hardly known. And that's, we don't need an emperor, but we do need to stick together and govern together. And then should we choose someone to delegate and speak in matters regarding our state, we can elect that person, or that not person, but that sovereign, to say, okay, what does everybody want? Okay, everybody wants this. Do we all agree that this is what we want? Okay, let's put that forth in whatever forum it needs to be put forth in, whether it be the public record or some other place, a meeting of the state or whatever the case may be. But yes, it is legation. It is simply putting legs, giving one set of legs to what everyone has agreed on. And nothing can't add anything to it. You can't take anything away. It's what the people say, period. Okay? That is legation. That is legation of authority. And it's not legation of authority. It is legation of a unified decision made by all the people. You know. So it says here, all along the Atlantic coast, from the Straits of Gibraltar to Mogador, his authority is well established. In the rich and populous district of Sousse, he has not much more than a nominal sovereignty. And among the Berber tribes of Mount Atlas, and in a large district situated directly between his two principal cities, Fez and Morocco. It doesn't say Fez, it says Fez and Morocco. His power is held in the most perfect contempt. So from one part of our vast estate to the next, some wanted an emperor, and that's fine. If Moors want to follow, you can't even tell sovereigns they can't follow. If that's what they choose to do, then that's what they choose to do. But Moors don't follow. They don't have any leaders. We lead ourselves, and we all do that as sovereigns together. And we say, okay, we're the state. We step up and say, we're all the state, just like we've been saying all along. Anyone who walks into a room full of Moors and says, who's in charge? Everyone in the room should stand up and say, we are. We are. What do you want to know? Ask us, all of us. And we're all going to say the same thing. And then when we sit back down and all the foreigners leave the room, we hash out whatever needs to be hashed out. And then make sure that we stay together, leave the door open for one another always. And then go from there, and that's how we govern. So, with that being said, enjoy this document. I'm learning so much because it is giving us the constructive criticism that we need to hear as a nation. So I would encourage everyone to read it. Yes. There were indeed the 7 hills of government, okay? 7 hills of government. And the principal cities, now, again, they reference the empire state of Morocco at the beginning of the document. And throughout the document, it's the empire state of Morocco. And then they turn around and say there is also a city, Morocco, not a kingdom, but a city. And that city was one of the principal cities, the 7 hills of government. And that seventh hill, or that city, the city of Morocco, was where banking and commerce, that was that hill. Banking and commerce. And then the whole empire was Morocco as well. And that was called the capital city because that's where all the capitalism took place. Capitalism can be a unified issue because it is a unified issue. That's how come everything belongs to the state. Well, who is the state? The state is the Moors. As long as we keep that in mind, we won't have to worry about someone else claiming to own us or everything. You know, we don't have to worry about that because everything belongs to all of us. That's what the state is. But we have to claim and proclaim and activate and do and be the state before that would be realized and acknowledged by others. And so we have our acknowledgement. We've gotten it several times. We've shown you where acknowledgement comes from. We've shown you where recognition of our sovereign state comes from. And we're going to keep putting all of this information out there as we move forward in, our banking and all of that. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that I'm not free to discuss at this time. but you know the gist of it because we always say what we're doing. Okay, so you can go back through these videos and you'll know what we're doing by what is put here on these videos. So are there any other questions, comments, wisdom, Islam? Delarium is coming in every day. Our Moroccan American exchange information and inheritance and investment packets are coming in all the time. And we're just continuing on with that. We're doing what we can now in terms of getting the ministerial help that we need to do the input. And then we're being shown some things by the ancestors that are going to expedite some of the things that we have, the vision that we have for our estate. With that being said, if there's nothing further, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural divine heirs. Islam.
Islam.
Islam. Grand rising. Islam. Grand rising. Grand rising. Long empire. Grand rising more.
Islam.
Grand rising.
Islam.
Grand rising.
Islam.